What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today is going to be the first episode of Tech Tip Tuesday. So what it's going to be is we're going to release a video every Tuesday, hence the name, of a technical tip, whether it be welding, fabrication, automotive, we might throw in some powder coating. I got Joe behind the camera right now, so he's going to be helping me out with putting out a video every week. So it's either going to be myself or him putting out that technical piece of information that we feel is lacking on YouTube. So for this one, we're going to be talking about TIG welding, and I'm going to be giving you guys a basic rundown on setup, and we're going to actually have Joe run a couple beads, and then I'm basically going to be critiquing him and helping you guys out along the way with any of those tips and tricks that can help you guys. Alright guys, my hair was a little jacked up, so I threw the beanie on. Hope you don't mind. This is my TIG welder. It's a Lincoln Electric Square Wave TIG 200. I've had this machine for about 5 years now, and I've got nothing but positive things to say about it. So if you are in the market for a TIG welder, I highly suggest this one. It has minimal features, which also makes it great for welders or TIG welders first starting out. You don't have to worry about all these complicated settings that some of these machines have. Most of you guys will not need them. So yeah, it's been a great machine, and I'll give you guys a quick rundown on how to set it up. We are going to be doing some mild steel today. We're not going to be doing stainless or aluminum. So with that, you're going to be on DCEN, which is direct current electrode negative. And what that means is basically, to keep it simple, is your torch is going to be set up to your negative end, and you can see mine actually has a little TIG torch symbol inside there. And then your ground is actually going to be your positive, okay? So it's going to be different. It's going to be opposite of like a car. So your positive is your ground, negative is torch end, all right? And then coming back here on the back of the machine, I actually have a dual flow regulator, but don't worry about that. If you only have a single regulator, that's fine. So you're going to have one end going into your regulator that hooks up to the back of your machine here. And then it's going to connect to your bottle, all right? Pretty simple stuff. And then obviously my machine is hooked up to 220 right now, but I also have a 110 outlet in the back. If I want to use 110, keep in mind that that's going to limit you on your amps. So if you can run 220, I suggest running 220. And if you guys have any other questions on your machine setup, each machine is going to vary a little bit, so I would just consult your instructions that came with your machine, because mine runs a foot pedal, but yours might just have a hand control, and there might be some slight variations, but that's just kind of a general idea of how it's set up. So let's get into the torch, and I'll show you guys the cup and gas lens that I like to use, and this is the setup that I use probably for 90% of my steel welding. It's a number 12 gas lens. It's the FUPA 12 from M. Furic. It's been a great cup. I've had this cup for probably about 3 years, and I've never even broken it. So some of these cheaper pink ones that you get from like the welding supply store, you're constantly breaking. If you drop them, they instantly break. This one's been great, so I highly suggest it. All right, so this is going to be pretty standard for any gas lens that you decide to go with. I do suggest a gas lens when you're welding any type of steel. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your collet and you're going to put it into your gas lens, and then from there you're just going to thread it into the torch body. Once you have that, take your cup, and then this one just threads right on like so. And sometimes you'll need these white adapters, but in this case I do not. So that's pretty much ready to go, and then all we have to do is grind our tungsten, and we'll be pretty much set up with a torch. Alright, so there's multiple ways to grind your tungsten, but either way you do it, you're going to get very good at it initially, because you're going to be messing this up a whole lot. And once you dip your tungsten, you have to regrind. So the way that I've been doing it, if you're like me and on a budget, you can pick up a cheap bench grinder. And I got this one chalked up just so you guys can see it on my table here. But I'm going to fire this guy up. And then I got a drill here. And what that allows me to do is spin the tungsten and get a nice pointed tip on the end. Alright? Whoop. Just killed the power. There we go. Nope. There we go. All right, so it doesn't have to be spinning super fast, just give it a nice little twist. I just kind of go back and forth so you get a nice pointed tip, all right? I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's about what you want. All right, so now that we got our tungsten ground down, what we want to do is we want to take our torch, and I got a small back cap on the back of here, but you might have a longer one. I don't really, it's kind of whatever your preference is, whatever you want to run. I like the short stubby ones because sometimes I'm in those tight areas, like inside a car doing a roll cage, and I really need to get this torch in some tight areas. That's the reason I run this stubby back cap. So back it all the way out, and then put your tungsten in, push it down. So I think the general reference is how wide this cup is about how much stick out you can run. I'm gonna let you know right now that I've ran way more than that before. You just have to turn your gas up, obviously. But for this, you can just kind of eyeball it. I would say probably about ½ an inch is good to start with this cup, maybe a little bit less. And then once it's there, just go ahead and tighten it down, lock it in, and now we're pretty much ready. All right, so we're gonna be welding, I think this is like 1/8 inch angle iron. Joe's gonna start out just doing some flat beads, and then I'll do some flat beads as well. And our settings for that are gonna be, this is gonna be kind of like a one size fits all for steel. So first, turn your gas on to fire the welder up. It's gonna take a minute. And then people get so bent around the axle about, hey, how many amps did you run for that? What was your gas flow? This and that. I don't really pay too much attention to my amps. I would rather turn it up and have more than I need. So I mean, we could crank it up to 130, and that should be plenty for this application. As far as my gas goes, what I like to do is just tap the pedal before I even start, and then it goes in, it goes 5, 10, 15, 20. You could crank it all the way up to about, I would say, 20 to 25 with this cup, and it's going to cover 90% of the steel that you're going to do. So now that we're set up, let's have Joe jump on the torch, and we're going to start out with some dirty steel, and then we'll clean it up, and then we'll weld again, and I'll show you guys the importance of angle grinding this mill scale off and what difference it makes. All right, so let's get to it. All right, we got Joe set up on the bench over here, and a couple things before we get started. Go ahead and grab that. You already got the filler rod?
Got filler rod.
All right, so that is actually ER70S Tac 2. That's my go-to mild steel filler rod. Joe's our hand model. And
I messed you up, didn't I? Obviously, Brian already talked about your TIG torch. What I do is I just like to wrap it around my arm. That way it takes the weight, because after a little bit it does start to kind of suck. Some people put it over their shoulder. Mine, I just twist it around my arm. And most of these are flexible if you get a halfway decent, machine. And so do the same thing with filler rod. At least how I do it is I put it in between my pointer and my middle finger, and that way I can control it, because it helps me when I put the angle down and I go to move. It helps me like run that straight line better. I've tried it other ways like this and everything else, and this is just the way that works.
Yep. I actually prefer doing the same thing. And I actually have this little thing over here. It's called a Tig Finger, and you can actually put that on your pinky. That way when you drag the torch, it'll keep you from burning your pinky or your hand.
Snazzy.
So, yep. See, learn something new every day. Yeah. All right, let's get after it.
Oh, we're set on aluminum, homie.
We're on AC. That's a good point. See?
We're on aluminum, homie.
You got to make sure that you are on direct current. DC. There we go. We are on DC. let's try that again.
That was awesome. If it makes that buzz sound, you're on aluminum. Alright.
Yep, you notice how he's shielding the weld afterwards? That's actually a really good technique. And that's not looking too bad. Too bad, brother.
The foot pedal, I noticed I just had her floored for a while, and then I felt like I needed to pull off, but I didn't know how much. Then I felt like I was not pushing enough.
Yep, so that's going to be...
The foot pedal thing gets me every time.
That's going to be the biggest learning curve, is getting that foot pedal and heat input. Because you're doing three things at once. You're adding filler, you're controlling that torch, and then you're controlling the heat with your foot.
It wasn't that bad. It could carry the heat though. I mean, it's ugly, but...
Yep, so that's not bad with how dirty this stuff is, to be honest. Alright, so one thing I want to touch on real quick is your torch angle. So when you guys are holding the torch and you're running your bead, don't be straight up and down, and don't be, you know, at a massive angle like this unless you have to be, okay? Usually like a little bit less than a 45 degree is pretty good. And it's also nice to be kind of have your head tilted if you're on a flat surface. That way you can get in here and see. If you have the torch straight up and down, it kind of blocks your vision of where you need to dab. So if you have that little bit of angle, it's going to help you guys out. All right. This weld right here actually looks pretty good. I mean, obviously this isn't Joe's first time welding, but I'm guessing that once we clean this metal up, there's going to be a noticeable improvement. But this on this mill scale is actually a pretty decent looking weld. So let's see what I can. So to be honest, I mean, they're pretty close. I didn't do that much better of a job than Joe. I would say my consistency is a little bit better.
Yeah, consistency is great.
But I noticed the entire time the puddle was just wandering on me, and that's because we need to prep this metal better. All right, so let's do that. All right, so in order to prep this material to get it nice and clean, all we're gonna do is we're gonna take our angle grinder, and we got a flat disc on here, and I'm just gonna flap this flat surface here, and then give it a quick wipe with some acetone, and then we'll do a second weld between myself and Joe, and we'll just see the improvement. All right, so I want you guys to take a quick look at the difference. At the top there, we got the two welds on the mill scale, and then this bottom part I just hit with the flap disc real quick, give it a quick wipe down with some acetone. And I like to compare it to painting a car. It's all in the prep work. All right, you could be the best welder in the world, but if you got some shitty prep work, then it doesn't matter how good of a welder you are. It's going to turn out like crap. So it's all in the prep work. You got to prep your metal just like you got to prep your paint job. All right, so let's get this second weld going with Joe and see what it looks like.
Before we start this too, one thing I just thought about real quick is also the way we're set up is we're welding on a metal table that Brian built. So our ground is just attached to a table which is grounding our metal. If you don't have a metal table, then you'd have to hook your ground straight to the metal. What I suggest is actually what I did at my house is I already had a wooden bench, and once I got a TIG welder, I just took a sheet of metal and just screwed it to the bench. That way you don't have to build a whole new bench, and also, you know, it still works because actually I've let my bench on fire a couple times because I grounded it straight to the part. You don't realize how hot it gets. So, but that's, we didn't talk about that earlier, so. Let's see. A little better. I went a little slower. First one I was trying to kind of rush.
Yeah, you can see the difference though. Did you notice the puddle?
Oh man, it was way more control. But when I did this one, it was kind of like going left and right. Sometimes it'd be a big puddle and little. And even with this, when I was kind of trying to mess with the pedal some. As you see towards the end, I jacked it up. But no, way better than that. Like the I guess you could say it's predictable.
Alright, so here's the two welds. They both look pretty good. Obviously much better quality than the two up top in the mill scale. So once you get to this point where you're able to successfully run a bead like one of these two, I would say stop welding on flat pieces of stock and get right into, you know, button up two pieces of metal together, or, you know, do like a lap joint and then weld the lap. So we'll do one of those right now with two pieces of prep material, and we'll see what Joe can do. What we have here is just some angle iron that we prepped, and I kind of laid one in the channel and then the two on the sides, and what that does is it gives you a nice outside corner joint, and then it simulates a nice groove for like a fillet weld, and you can flip this thing over and weld on the other side, and it's going to help you guys out. So
you got fillet weld. Also, dude, you guys can buy things like this. I have a smaller one at the house. This was some like roll cage plate. As you can see, I've jacked it all up because I was trying all different stuff. But you can buy like coupons off Amazon. You can look up Tig Welding practice coupons, and like I made a little box, like a little square and all that, and you can get those cheap. Let's see.
Keeping the torch over the end of the weld to keep the gas coverage on it. That's a good tip.
There was a lot going on there. I was trying to play. I felt like I was getting hot and then cold and then too hot and then too cold again.
That's pretty good, dude.
That's just, I gotta get used to this pedal. I was trying to go slow, then I felt like I was outrunning the weld. But you guys will see, when you actually look through this helmet and everything else, when you start doing it, you can see the puddle and kind of figure out what is going on. I know it's hard to understand when we talk about it, but like you can see, I started, this is where I kind of went down because I was trying to feed rod, and then I had to come back up, but it turned out better than I expected. I thought I was way down here.
Yep.
Yeah, you know.
How would you say that looks compared to, say, that box that you welded with no prep?
Oh, way better, dude. Look, I mean, I barely prepped this, and like that's one of the better looking ones. But look, I didn't prep like that hardly at all.
Yep, and that's the stuff that you'll get.
And that was like, you know, and that was the same heat setting right there as what I did over here.
Pretty good, dude.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. We just want to do like a quick down and dirty. We wanted to use me as an example, which honestly I thought I was going to mess up more than I do, so maybe I wasn't the perfect example. But I am what you would say like a beginner TIG welder. So once you get past dipping the tungsten, and figuring out kind of a consistency, you'll be right where I'm at. So each Tuesday we're going to start putting some out. Sometimes it might be automotive related, more towards my side of stuff. Sometimes it might be welding related. Sometimes it might be turbos, something, you know. We'll try to switch it up all the time so that way we fill kind of everybody's needs. If you guys are running into a problem with welding or with any of this really, but you know, you've been practicing and there's just one thing you can't figure out, everything else, comment, and we might make a whole video about it, because if you're having that problem, I'm sure I'll have the same problem. And then we can kind of go through and see about fixing it with Brian, you know, telling us what we're doing wrong, you know, everything else. And then I was doing good till then. So thanks for watching, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.